Right, so we take a look at the current statistics for Irma. It is still a very powerful Category 5 storm. Winds right now 185 miles per hour, gusting to 225 miles per hour. Movement is west-northwest at about 16 miles per hour, taking it just now to the north of Puerto Rico. Again, they've already been experiencing incredibly heavy rainfall, however, the past couple of hours due to some of those outer bands, and that's likely to intensify in the coming hours. Now, in the short term, we know the track is going to continue taking it west over places like the Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, and around Cuba. But then it begins to make a sharp right turn. That's where things start to get a bit more trickier. Again, you'll notice in the short term, everybody seems to agree. All of the models really keep it at its pretty consistent track. It's during that right-hand turn. This is where things start to deviate a little bit. Some models make that turn a little earlier over places like the Bahamas. That would in turn make a landfall, say, closer to Georgia, North Carolina, or South Carolina. But some other models are a little bit slower to make that turn. In doing so, it ends up making the landfall over portions of Florida. So this becomes where the tricky part is. Now, in terms of historical data, we look at some of the recent Category 4 and Category 5 storms. We all remember Hurricane Harvey from just a few short weeks ago, but we've also been looking at Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Charlie, and Hurricane Hugo that were some pretty intense storms, and those actually had impacts around Florida. Now, the biggest storm to really impact Florida was Hurricane Andrew back in 1992. Again, over $26 billion in economic loss. We had over 60 fatalities with this one, and the storm surge from this particular storm was 17 feet. But this path took it straight over the Gulf and up towards Louisiana. That's not what we expect Irma to do. In fact, Irma could take a path eerily similar to Hurricane Matthew from just last year. Matthew, if you recall, skirted just along the eastern coast of Florida before actually making landfall over portions of South Carolina. Now, Matthew had economic losses slightly under that of Andrew at $15 billion, but still high enough. The fatalities were the bigger difference. The majority of the 585 fatalities came from Haiti, but they weren't all there. We did have other fatalities with that. And storm surge for this one was 26 feet. So again, these are not Irma, but there are similarities between the two. But the thing to note is that this is a Category 5 storm. This is incredibly strong, which is why we have hurricane warnings out for areas like Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and the Turks and Caicos. And then further north, areas like the Bahamas and Cuba are looking at hurricane watches. And some of those may get issued at a later point in time for places like Florida or other U.S. states when we can finally narrow down that path. But Brianna, we talked about this before. The takeaway is, regardless of where the U.S. landfall is, whether it's Florida or the Carolinas, all of those states need to begin their preparations ahead of time.